Okay, let's create a process that will try to query from DB to a file. So let's use the DB connector as a start shape on database. So now most of the time, right, the clients what they are trying to do instead of installing a database in local, right? So they are going to use different options like the databases that are set up in the cloud, right? Maybe Amazon's maybe Amazon side they're also using, and what I recently noticed is Microsoft Azure SQL database. It's very similar to the database. There is no thing except the connection details. So even driver also might be using automatically. The cloud might have been supporting this one. So, but only thing is you just need to use a different connector. So rest of the things, what if you are thoroughly comfortable with database connector, it would be the same thing. There is no change. Even you would be using the same database profile, everything. So that's how. Okay, now we'll do with this database connector. So maybe if you are working on any other project, they might be using cloud database. You might be need to use some other connector, but it's very similar to the database connector. So what I recently saw is Microsoft Azure SQL database. So even Google also has their similar kind of a setup also there. Google also. Okay, now let's go ahead and use the same connection what we are using. Now let's go ahead and click on operation. Click on plus statement, select statement. So you can use the import statement here again. Use a dev. So you can just go ahead and let's select the table. Let's click on next. So that it would be extracting the metadata structure of the table, and that would be generated as a profile. So let's select all the columns here. Click on next. Click on finish so that your profile might be generated. Okay, so now let's okay, so let's try to do the basic things, then we'll go proceed with the rest of the options. We will try to do this one. So now use a notify shape. Now let's try to run. So I just use notify shape to just display the data in the log. No other purpose, special purpose. And now you can see that even if you can go here and log, and you can see what queries I am executed. Select create ID, customer ID, and customer name and order from the table. So now let's go ahead and you can see the data. But yes, I can understand it looks to be a bit difficult to understand that. So let me explain. As I mentioned in the earlier process, that DB profile also it looks to be one of the flat file profile, similar to the flat file profile. So what we can see is what we have seen in the flat file profile earlier is every record is separated by the new line character in the flat file, and every column is been delimited by some delimiter. So if you just ignore this part, right, maybe if you see, let me use hash, control H. Here hash is a new line character, so I'm just splitting this one for better readability. Match whole world only. Let me remove this one, replace all. Okay, so if you see this one. Okay, so this is a DB start and DB end, and this would be some metadata would be generated. This is a component ID of the profile. Maybe if you just stop this one, right, so see only one document is generated. So if you just go ahead and stop, and if you see the component ID here, okay, so let me copy this component ID, Control P. So you can just go ahead and see, click here, so you can see the component ID. It's basically some metadata would be added to the data each and every time when the database content is being, database profile content is generated. So this is DB start, and you will see the corresponding ending here. So the DB end, and you will see the begin and end, out start, out end, something like that. So after that, every column, right? So every column is delimited by, this is a symbols. This is every column is delimited by, this is a character, and every new line character, every record is being separated by the hash. So remember, we already removed this hash. Wherever hash is there, I replace with new line character. And basically every record is being separated with the hash, and every column is being separated with this symbol. It looks to be, this is a kind of a, if you remove the metadata header and trail part, so this is how it looks like flat file. So now you can see that how many records are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 records are generated. Okay. So now my requirement here would be, I don't want to generate all the records. I don't, let's say let's say your table has 1 lakh records or 1 crore records. What happens if you use select star, right? The just basic query what we executed is just a select star. Means it will retrieve all the records. But I wanted to have retrieve few types of I need to pass my criteria for the statement, so that whatever satisfies my criteria, only those particular records should be extracted. I don't want all the records to be extracted. So in that case, what you can do is you can even edit it. Okay, just if you want to modify editing statement, you can edit it. So what you want to use, you can need to pass a where class. Okay, now let me pass the where class here. Where I wanted to pass based on the customer ID, because customer ID is unique. Generally will consider whenever using a filter, basically customer ID or these unique fields will be considered. Let's say I wanted to retrieve this particular record. Okay, so if I pass this record, right, now if you just see, if you want to enlarge your screen, you can use this button, so you'll get a full screen. Okay, so you get more okay. Now if you just go ahead and see the record, only 196 record only you will get it. Only one record you can see. It means it's kind of, but what I my exactly expecting is, I don't want to hard code it. If you run number of times also, you'll get only the same record, because we have hard coded we have hard coded the where class with the static value, but I don't want hard coded value. I wanted to accept at runtime. Okay, I wanted to accept at runtime whatever the value I pass, so that it should automatically take the value. So basically we'll call it as a prepaid parameters. Prepaid parameters or prepaid statement, we'll call it as prepaid parameters. This is basically we'll call it in Java, because ultimately whatever you're doing is we're using a jar file called JDBC driver. So it means we are internally connecting with the Java technology on behind screens for for connecting to database and doing all this operations on the DB. So it means how this prepaid parameter will called, whatever the statement that has a prepaid parameter will called as a prepaid statement. Now this is, if you don't have this one question mark, right? Generally prepaid parameters will be represented as a placeholders with the question marks. The question marks, if you have more than one question mark, it will follow the sequence. But now what I need to do is, I wanted to pass a customer ID value at runtime. Okay, let me show you runtime how I can pass it. Add a parameter. Whenever you want to define any parameters here, you need to add a parameter. And one thing is, whenever you are doing adding a parameter, make sure that the data types on the left side and the right side, the prepared parameter that you are going to add, both the data types should be matched. Otherwise, sometimes if it's a date when it comes to use the date types, right, you may get error might be throwing. If you are using a string or integer or something, you may get unexpected behavior. So it's always better to use the proper data types. In this case, what is this one is, let's see, what is this integer data type. So let me just select this particular value as a integer, whatever the parameter you want to give. you can add this one, maybe C customer ID. Okay, so that, okay, I understand. I define a parameter. So where is the place I need to pass a value for this particular value, so that here when I say uh, placeholder as a question mark, in the sense this is the value we are going to refer it. Okay. Now I need to pass a value, right? So I have just defined a parameter name, but where I need to pass a value is in the parameters tab. You can see the parameters tab. It's asking only one parameter you already defined. You need to pass a value here. So what is the value I wanted to pass? This time I wanted to pass 188. At this moment we are passing this value as a static. Okay, so the further classes I'll tell you how you can pass the value dynamically. It means we are not going to change every time the statement. We are not going to alter the database profile value. We are just passing the parameters, but this particular parameter we are passing a static value. That's why we'll go and change each and every time when you run the process. It means we have make our operation as a generic. It can accept any parameter at runtime. So you can see this time you might be using 188 something. So we'll get the only records specific to that. Okay, if you wanted to use, these all are like completely in DB prospective. So maybe if you want to retrieve multiple records, multiple customer IDs, right? So what you can do, you need to alter statement something like in in you pass something like maybe I'm not sure whether you can pass really or not. If you want to pass more than one value, you need to specify something like this. So let's say if you want to pass generally, right? If you are using this one, just select star from customer. Okay, so if you execute this, you are getting all record where first ID. If you want to pass more than one value, right, you can use in class, and you can pass 184 comma 186. Since there is this particular field is integer type, we are passing this one. If it's a string type, we need to enclose this in double quotes. Now if you run this, right, so you should get to two records. Similarly, whether you will be accepting this value with one one parameter will accept the two values, we'll just check whether it's really accept or not. So here whenever you change this string, right, so we need to change these values as, no, not in number, this time character. Okay, so now let me just change the value to similar value like this, 188 comma 180 186. We'll try this one whether this will work or not. Other integration tools won't accept, so you need to generate the query itself. A dynamic statement need to generate. So I think it let's see what it is being executed. Query. Okay, but what is the query it executed? Let's see the data. 188. I think it's not executed. It's only 188. The first record it's accepted. I think it's not working. Then we need to use more than one parameters. Only accepted the first one. It didn't took the next one. So if you want to accept multiple values, what you need to do is you can just you can maybe if you can use some customer ID greater than 186 something like this, or you can even put this one. Even they're putting two parameters, so you need to add one more parameter. Okay, something you need to pass like this. We'll be changing this thing here. We'll be getting one more parameter here. Okay, so we'll make sure that parameters of type integer here. Not sure whether it implicitly handles the data types or not, but it's always better to have proper data types mentioned in the query. So let's see the data what it generated here. You can see the 186 record is came as well as 188 record is there. So one thing what I would like to tell you here is, you always, if you're using more than one parameter, right, you should be using a proper sequence, otherwise you will get error. So let's say if a customer id equal to, let's say I'm passing the customer id and I'll be passing the customer name. I'll be passing two parameters, something like this. One is customer id, other one is customer name. Okay, so I can define this as a number, this as a string value. So something, if you pass wrong parameters, right? So if you say, let's say if you pass customer id as let's say for this particular value, if I pass 186, it will replace here. Next second sequence will be replaced here. If I, if I shuffle it something like this, right? If I shuffle it something, you can just drag it and you can something, you can, I'll use this one. Okay, you can see now what is, it's not changed in. Okay, maybe I can rename this so that it will be more easy for us. P C name. Let's say if I move this one, it's not coming. Okay. So if you see like this, right, what happens, right? For customer ID column, the value what you enter in the C name, customer name value will be mapped. What you enter for a customer name field, the value that you enter in CID, customer ID value will be mapped. So that is why the query is not validated. The query will not validate based on naming convention, something like that. The query by default it takes based on the position. So that's why we have to make sure that's our responsibility. We have to pass the in right sequencing. So now if I just pass these things, so this is not valid now. So we'll get C name. So we'll pass what's the value we passed is 188, right? So we'll pass 188, 188. So if you match both the conditions, so now let's see, you got only one record that matches customer ID and customer name, both are matches properly, then only you'll get this record. This is how we need to use with prepared parameters, all the things. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these prepared parameters now. I don't want to use prepared parameters. I want to query all the records. Okay, now let me, so when you have to make sure whenever you are deleting these prepared parameters, you need to alter your query as well accordingly, otherwise you will get an error here. Okay. Okay, now this is our one use case. So far what we have seen is how to query all the records and how to use the prepared parameters to filter the records. That's how we have been seen so far. So what we are doing here is, again we are trying to execute all the records so that we will be getting, we back to the normal state. Now you can see only one record is getting. Okay, only one document is getting, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to have every record to be in separate document instead of all records having a one document. You want to use that, use the link element here, use specify the unique elements generally, and use the save and close. What happens, parameters, why it's saying parameters? Okay, we did not delete this one list. Okay, now let me just test it. So batch count default value is 0 or 1, will be both will be same. So what happens now? So far, what we got is every all the records in one document. Okay, all the records in one document. Now, what I was expecting is every record should be in specific document. So when maybe in the next classes will be seen, we have an option of converting one document that has multiple records, converting that into splitting into every document has a one record. Now if you can see maybe 6 records in one document. Okay. Now what happens here is all 6 record, one document has 6 records. We should be in a position to split one document per one record. Like this, to cover 6 records, we should be generating 6 documents. Each document have a one record. This option is this splitting. What it means is splitting and combining option is there for flat file profile, XML, and JSON also there, but not for the database profile. Database profile, you don't see an option. We will see these options, right? How we can use flat file for splitting and combining, right? You can use the data process. I'll maybe will not now will give you information on this. We'll tell you these things later. You can see split document. Okay, split documents, you have option of flat file, XML, EDI, JSON, but not for database profile. So database profile don't have an option of splitting using the data process. So that's why what we are going to do is we will be going to use, let's say, one record here. Okay, batch count is 1. So now using this combination of the link element and batch count, we will be able to achieve the splitting of the database profiles. So you can see how many records now generated here. 6 records are generated. If you go and select each document, right, we have only one document is here. So generally, why we'll use why you need to split and combine, right? So when you are processing a record by record level, you need to do a splitting. Let's say you are getting multiple customers and you need to check each customer whether the particular customer ID is there or not. If it is there, you need to perform some actions. If it is not there, you need to do the certain actions. The same process should be repeated for all the records in the all the records from the source system. In that case, you cannot process all in one document. How to split it? You do all these actions and then you need to process it. After when you are ready to reply back to your source system, you can combine it again. So that whenever you want to work this kind of a things for database profile, right, you don't have an option of splitting explicitly. So you need to use the options link element. Generally for link element, we will specify the unique key elements from the profile or for table, and we use the batch count as a 1, so that you will get all the records in separate documents. Okay, now I have showed these options as well. I'll make this as a default value so that I'll get only. If you specify max rows, right, irrespective of the rows that is written by your query, it will be limited to this number of values. Let's say my query by default it's giving 6 records. If I put 2, right, even though 6 records written by the query, your connector is limiting those 2 records, 6 records to 2 records. Which 2 records will give you? Whatever the records comes in for order, same records. So you cannot guarantee the exact order. Whatever the connector is giving the order, the same thing will be there. Okay, now we have seen all the options that is been available in the output of the database connector for the query operation. So now what we need to do is we need to create a flat file profile, we need to create a JSON profile, we need to create the XML profile. So if you can want to continue, we'll go and continue because it will take again 10 minutes to complete this. If you want to continue further, then we'll continue further. It's up to you.
We can continue further.
Okay, then we'll finish it. So then maybe in the next session we'll see how we can use this output as a database connector output to generate 2 different types of format of files.
Yes.
Okay. And then we'll share this recording.
Yeah. Okay.
So any doubts now?
For now, no. So let me go through this and come back to you.
Okay, you can practice it and you can let me know if anything is there. We'll discuss tomorrow. Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
Thank you.